We're talking with Larry Elder, and he's outlining some big problems, the bad. He's outlined some of the good solutions, and he's got a few more. And then I want to get your vision. So, Larry, what are some other solutions that we should put in place now?
Well, we need to do something about the runaway spending here. Both sides do it. Democrats do it. Republicans do it. I remember when Ronald Reagan ran in 1980, Kevin, he promised to shut down the Department of Education. When he left, the Department of Education was bigger than before. You know, once a government program is started, it's almost impossible to kill it. Reagan used to say, if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. If it stops moving, subsidize it. And that's what we're doing. We need to tie the hands of Congress, and I urge that there be an amendment to our Constitution that limits spending to a certain percentage of our GDP, with exceptions for war and for natural disaster. That's the only way we're going to get spending under control. Both Bill Clinton and Barack Obama have said, and they've used the word unsustainable in talking about Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. Our population is getting older, they're living longer, and those programs are not sustainable. We need to do something to reform them. But when you do that, you're touching the third rail of politics. And anytime you do that, the other side will then accuse you of trying to end Social Security. You scare a bunch of senior voters, and they vote. And so nothing gets done. The can gets kicked down the road. But at some point, we need to deal with that.
Yeah, what I love about that, Larry, is the idea that if politicians love to spend money, okay, then make it possible for the economy to grow. The more we grow, the more money you can spend. That puts them on the same side of the table as the rest of us. We need growth before we can spend. Got to get a raise, right?
That's right. Government has no money. They can tax it, they can borrow it, or they can print it. That's the only way they get it. And each one of them has a negative consequence.
Well, if we can get them to growing the economy, and that's the only way they get an extra dollar to spend, that will cause a lot of economic growth, in my opinion. Okay, any other solutions?
Well, I think we need to encourage people there are think tanks on the left, like the Brookings Institution, and then on the right, like American Enterprise Institute.
Right.
And they may disagree about policy and about this and about that, but they agree on what it takes to escape poverty. Number one, finish high school. Number two, don't have a kid before you're 20 years old. Number three, get married before you have that kid. Number four, get a job, keep that job, don't quit that job till you get another job. And number five, avoid the criminal justice system. You do those things, you will not be poor. You don't do those things, there's a very good chance you will be. So we need to just get back to those kinds of values.
Well, you know, what you said there is important, because what you said earlier, we spent $22 trillion in the war on poverty, and we have a $32 trillion debt, which means 2/3 of our debt is directly related to a bad approach to poverty. You just outlined a good approach to poverty that any two-parent home would want for their kids. Don't have a kid until you're married. You know, finish high school, get a job. Those are things that parents want for their children. So we gotta fix the family.
Absolutely.
All right. So now you've got some time. Tell us the Larry Elder vision for America. What should America be like? What can it be like?
Well, Kevin, I'm going to break some news on your show. Larry Elder is thinking about running for president. And if I decide to, I'm going to make my decision by the end of this month. I have a political action committee called elderforamerica.com, and I'm urging people to throw a little something in the tip jar. What I want to do is talk about the obvious things that you and I have been talking about the need to secure the borders, about the need to do something about crime by no longer bad-mouthing the police and causing them to have the lowest morale that I've ever seen. We need to do something about our education. We need to do something about our spending. But I think I bring to the table a couple of things that maybe some of the other candidates don't. Number one, I think I can refute the narrative that America is systemically racist perhaps better than others can because of the experience of my father. My father never knew his father, so it's not a death sentence. My father ended up cleaning toilets when I was a kid. He started a little cafe and ran that until he was in his 80s. And he ended up owning the property where the cafe was, a little bit of property adjacent to it, plus the home we still have in our family. My dad, when he retired, was a little under a millionaire. He was thrown out of the house when he was 13 years old by his irresponsible mother, and still my father was able to be a very, very successful man. And my dad always told my brothers and me the following: hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. Larry, you cannot control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before you complain about what somebody did or said to you, go to the nearest mirror, look at it, and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? Finally, my dad said this: no matter how hard you work, how good you are, bad things are going to happen. How you deal with those bad things will tell your mother and me if we raised a man.